think we're good for getting started. I'm feeling good about the audio this morning. Hey, thanks everyone for your patience last week. That fourth booster is a bear. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'm feeling back to the original. Good as new. Before we begin today, I did want to give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. Hey, hello. What would you recommend reviewing for the midterm? I would recommend reviewing the midterm review, which I don't think is published yet. Let me take a, we have this, this text-based study guide, which is basically just a list of all of the slide presentations and videos that will be covered in the midterm. Before the midterm exam, there will be some sort of midterm review delivered via video. I probably will cram it in on this Tuesday directly before the exam and just spend 15 or 20 minutes. Basically what I do is I do it in class. I open up a copy of the exam, turn the projector off, and tell you all what's on the exam. I kind of look through it and I'm like, well, there's this and that and this and that. So I'll be doing that during class. That's probably like the most effective way, but then this midterm study guide could also potentially be helpful. So stay tuned for that. That'll be next week. Holy crap. Sorry, that's a quote. Holy crap. Almost midterm. I can't believe it. Wow. Any other questions related to like class stuff? No? All right, so today we're gonna switch gears a little bit. We had a chance to see what was going on as far as like sort of the big picture of GIFs in culture, how artists are exhibiting GIFs, and people are maybe talking about GIFs as just a communication tool. Today we're going to shift into working with video, and primarily we're going to be doing that through Premiere Pro, which is an Adobe app. If you don't already have it installed, you can go up here to your Creative Cloud, and it should be in the list of apps that you can install. So I would go ahead and do that before you go any further, for sure. We are going to kind of get into the beginnings of putting together a project in Premiere today. That's basically like our mission today, is to crack open Premiere and to sort of think about ways that we can use it. So before I jump into thinking about video in general, I want to give you a little bit of an overview of the next couple weeks. So as you can see, we have a remix video assignment, which is basically also known as the video assignment. So it's to make a, let's take a look at it. Hello. Right. So you make a 1-minute video from a selection of clips and audio of your choice. There's various guidelines. I do want you to pay some attention to the technical guidelines here. Definitely with video, there's a huge difference between a sort of good video and a not good video. What do I mean by a not good video? Well, I'm sure we've all seen them on YouTube, right? They're videos that are just super blurry. They may have compression artifacts. They maybe look like they were encoded in the 1980s. And we're sort of like trying to create something that's at a contemporary standard. So the sort of like magic number that I've set for all of you is to for the entire video portion of the course, we're working in what's called 1080p. And 1080p is also known as HD. It's also known as full HD. It probably has a couple of other nicknames. But at the present moment, as in right here in 2022, it is this sort of like baseline standard for most digital video. Why am I giving you sort of a middle of the road standard? Does anybody maybe have some ideas about why that might be? Yeah.
Because it has the widest support.
Right, the widest support on playback, for sure. That is a huge reason. Another reason is that, I have some vague idea of what kind of computer you're working with. And if you're working with maybe like the beast of a workstation that I just put together in my basement, you could certainly work in 4K or maybe even 8K. But for most people, 1080 is kind of a good all-around resolution to work at, where you're not going to find yourself having to maybe hit the render button in Premiere Pro. And this is not a recommendation, by the way. This is just like my memories from the old days. You hit the button, you go outside, you have a cigarette, you buy a burrito for somebody, and then you come back and it's like 25% done. So we're not going to be doing that. We want things to kind of proceed in an efficient and timely way. And so using a resolution that's not sort of like the best resolution that we could ever hope for is just kind of a way to guarantee that. So I do want everyone to sort of pay extra special attention to the fact that we're working in 1080p. Now, you may be asking yourself, why? Why are we working in 1080p? Well, we just gave a couple of reasons, but here's another reason. If you make a 1080p video, and right now I'm just looking through the source clips that I downloaded online, which I can show you where those are in just one second. If you have a clip such as this that's in 1080, we can see that it's in 1080 here, or we could also pull up the info panel by hitting Command A, or Command I, rather. That will bring up the info panel, and you can see that it's 1920 by 1080, which is full HD. We cannot take this HD video and combine it with another video that is a different size. That's a bold claim. Technically, I guess we could. We could maybe scale one of them up or scale one of them down. But we've seen how kind of horrible that looks in Photoshop. For reasons that I'm not going to get into right now, that looks even worse when you do it in video. So if you're trying to kind of take the pixel size of a video, maybe it's like a really small video, and you're trying to sort of blend it in with your HD clips, I would say good luck. It's probably not going to happen. And in general, I would steer away from any clip that is not 1080. People would say, oh, can I use a 720 clip? That's a common question that I get. And I will say to you, sure, you can use that 720 clip, but be prepared for it to take up about half of the space on the screen. And then if you wanted to blow it up, you would be blowing it up, just like we have been potentially doing in Photoshop or other ways where it's basically taking a pixel image and resampling it. So those are just things in general that are not real great to do. So I want to kind of get that out outside of the sort of official demo. So I did go ahead and bring up some clips. So when I look through the sample practice videos, which are the clips that I provide for you, they're nothing special. It's basically just a list of kind of random clips. You are more than welcome to find additional clips online that you may find more compelling for various reasons. I'm not going to demo that in class for you because that would potentially mean that I might be guilty of copyright infringement. So I would, think seriously about that. If you're thinking about grabbing clips from, let's say, recently published Hollywood movies, maybe not a good idea. Anything that you do that could potentially, trigger interest, right? So in general, when you're putting together clips for a project like this, you want to look for clips that are Creative Commons licensed or clips that have been provided to you by your instructor that have no copyright infringement issues whatsoever. And then you can do that. I will say for anybody that's interested in how do I get a video from X to be in my project, X being some website that has a large amount of corporate money, I would say that sounds like a wonderful question for Google and maybe not the greatest question for me personally. But ask and ye shall be rewarded. The information is certainly out there. So some of these did come through those means. Like I said, I'm not, because in this context right now, we are not planning on profiting from this, and we're planning on using these clips in a way that does not just reproduce the clip. As I'm not basically hiring all of you all to come in here and say, hey, do you want to sell tickets to my screening of the 1984 edition of Dune? I'm not doing that. And so because I'm not doing that, probably using small clips from Hollywood movies is actually well within the boundaries of fair use. I'm just one of those people that when it comes to that kind of stuff, I tend to sort of subscribe to the philosophy of better safe than sorry. So that being said, these are all clips that you may use. If you do go out and find other clips, or you're even maybe using clips from your device, those clips need to be exported at 1080p. They need to be 1080p in order to sort of play with the sample clips that I've prepared for you. And also probably to prepare the Premiere project itself inherits some settings from the video, so you would also need it to work with your Premiere project. So if you have any questions about maybe getting video, especially getting video out of this device, or getting video out of some camera that you already operate, that would be a good question to maybe ask the TAs. I have an Android environment, so all of my video just gets dumped into Google Photos, and then I can download it just like that. So I'm sure there's some iCloud version of that. So that being said, though, this beautiful device doesn't actually shoot 1080. You'd have to potentially export it as 1080 in order to get that going. So yeah, things just to think about. So before we jump into like any sort of doings with Premiere, does anybody have any questions before we begin? No? Okay. All right, well, so we're going to make our very first Premiere project. Yay! I love new days of new projects. So this feels like you get to start over from scratch a little bit. So Premiere Pro opens up this window, and we're basically going to completely ignore it, except we do want this checked right here. We want the Create New Sequence button there. You can call it whatever you want. Maybe I'll call it something slightly more memorable. I see a theme developing here. You could actually go ahead and create that project in a place, which I would advocate doing that. So I'm going to You know, I have this is just my desktop right now. I'm sort of thinking about whether I should just create maybe a new. Actually, I'm going to go out to my desktop really quickly, and I'm going to make a new folder. It looks like I have this empty folder down here. I can use this. And I think I'm going to call it my video. Now, unlike other apps that we have used in this class, like Photoshop, for example, Premiere is a little bit of a different animal, and it takes the folder hierarchy much more seriously. So whatever you make this folder, which is in this case my video, so now I'm going to see if I can refresh this. Hello. So I'm going to stick this my video folder as sort of like the home folder for my project. Do I want to replace it? Yes. And then what you'll see what happens is Premiere sort of opens up into this other interface, which is your sort of four-window thing. Now, there's just a couple of issues that I'm sort of looking at right now that I'm a little bit, it looks like my window is a little bit not quite right, so I'm going to try to reset the workspace. No. If you hang on for just one quick second, I'm going to do some adjustments to the display settings. I think that'll take care of it. I see now. It's because I put it in the I can see resolution, which apparently Premiere doesn't like. So, okay, I can kind of live with that, I think. So I'm just trying to, a little frustrating, trying to grab the top of the window here, and it's not really letting me do that. Okay. So I'm just going to try restarting Premiere quickly in this new screen resolution and see if it kind of auto sets itself to the window size. Hopefully that'll work. Okay, so here is our untitled project, and yay, a full window. Okay, oh, my goodness, technology, love it, huh? I'm in the, I can't see resolution, but I'm gonna do my best, y'all. It's how we're rolling here. So basically at this point, I created a project, and I have kind of like an empty project, which is not super exciting. Right now, I have, it's called Untitled. We can see it in the actual folder that it's in if we point to that folder in the desktop. I remember sticking it right here. We can't even see it in the folder right now because we have not saved it. So I'm going to save it to that folder, and by doing that, I'm basically going to kind of cement the creation of my project. Now, why am I going through all of this kind of rigmarole to save to a folder? Because I'll tell you why. Because Premiere default saves it in literally the most useless place possible. It's like nested in five things. So you possibly may never find it there. So I like to kind of put it in my own folder so I know where it is, and I'm just going to call it something like My Cats, because that pretty much does the trick for anything that I would create. And as we recall, maybe that project is on the desktop. So I'm just going to find it here on the desktop. And now I've got my project sort of created. It's still not looking very project-ly, okay? Because really what this project is at this point is just an empty container. So video, or Premiere, at its root, think of Premiere as like a container for other video assets. That's, in a nutshell, that's basically what Premiere does, is it allows you to integrate assets, whether they're video files, audio files, visual, like still images. Premiere basically gives you an opportunity to kind of cut and paste all that stuff together and then make a singular product. So still, what do we need? Oh, we need assets. That would be a good thing to make. So I'm going to go through these 4 windows and just kind of explain what these 4 windows are. We'll get into sort of like what they actually do in reality when we go to start actually getting a project going and editing it. To sort of sum up at this point, this is your source browser, this window over here. And the source browser basically allows you to view your source clips. This is called the program browser over here. And so the program browser basically shows you your edited product. So this is where your product goes. And then down here is the asset browser, and over here is the timeline. And the timeline is where most of the action happens. So there's a couple of ways that we can bring assets into our project. One way is doing it kind of the boring way and saying, hey, let's just import. And so I can go into the source video folder, which I have somewhere on my hard drive. It's the same stuff that I asked you all to download, or that I put available for download. So, and you select them and you import them, and it's that simple. So now a bunch of stuff is going to start happening really quickly. So let me just show you what's going on here, because there's some stuff that you really want to know about. One is that right now we have the asset browser, or the project browser, the media browser, as Adobe calls it, sort of set up to browse these videos as lists. There's lots of other ways that you can look at things. I tend to have a ton of assets in my projects, so I tend to put them in list format just so I can most efficiently see what's there. There's some people feel really strongly about getting a kind of visual preview, in which case, by all means, set it to icon view. Now, what's going to happen here is we're going to take one of these videos and I'm going to drag it onto the timeline. And that makes magic happen in several ways. So it's not really magic. I'm just joking about that. But basically what happens is you create a timeline. And so by doing that, when you drag that clip into the timeline, you're creating a sequence. And so you can probably see here on the screen, we have sprinkles.mov, or sprinkles.movie, that went in here as the sort of sprinkles. And then we also have sprinkles the sequence. So sprinkles the sequence is going to end up being your project, because sprinkles is going to be anything that goes in this timeline. It's just going to be called sprinkles. If you don't like the fact that it's called sprinkles, you can call it anything you want. But it's important to know that there is a thing called a sequence. And the reason that it's important to know that there's a thing called a sequence is because when you get into doing like professional video where you have an intro and an outro and some of those other maybe things in the middle where you ask people to like and subscribe, when you're having those sort of repetitive content elements in your video, you definitely can take sequences and string sequences together. And so that's a really efficient way of maybe making like a title sequence, for example, and then sticking in whatever your daily content is, and then having that outro sequence too. So by the end of the unit, we might start to get into some more advanced things that you can do with Premiere. But definitely, if you're thinking about creating a YouTube channel or doing that type of activity, Premiere is a fantastic tool for automating some of the sort of like daily grind of just some of the stuff that you have to do. So, okay, so we have sprinkles. Let's take a little bit of a look at the interface before we go much further. So right now, I want to just direct you to this playhead. So the playhead in the timeline is really, really basically just literally what is playing. And you also may have noticed that the program browser is also displaying right now our program, which basically everything that's in the given timeline will wind up in the program browser. So today we're going to make some sprinkles. It's glorious. So we also have this thing called a source browser, and I do want to show you how that works because it feels very lonely and left out right now. So if I double-click this Sprinkles movie, I can basically ask it to appear in the source browser, and one of the things that I can do with that is I can put ins and outs on my source. So let's say I want to get to this point where we're just doing the pink stuff. I think the pink stuff starts right about here. So I can add a mark in there, and then if I kind of just scroll, or scrub is actually the official term for it, if I scrub down to the end of the pink stuff, it can just be some arbitrary point. I can mark an out there. And from there, I can then take the clipped version of this and move it to the timeline. So, so you can see here, if you've got a bunch of short clips, you can probably just put them directly on the timeline, and you can edit them directly on the timeline. If you have a longer clip and you want to grab sections of it, that's just another strategy that you can use. Also, up here on the source browser section, there's a couple of tabs that will be super useful later. One is the effect controls and the audio clip mixer. We probably will use the effect controls palette later as we kind of work our way through this. So let me tell you a couple of things about the timeline. In the timeline, you can see we have this longer video called sprinkles.mov, and then we have another instance of the same video that's been edited down in the source browser with an out and an in. So I'm going to zoom in on the timeline a little bit, and you zoom in on the timeline by toggling this sort of this bar here. There are times, like now, when zooming all the way out on the timeline makes total sense, because I'm like, yeah, I got sprinkles 1, sprinkles 2. I'm not too concerned with how many sort of frames are in sprinkles 1. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm just not thinking about it in that level of detail. So if I were to come over to this one and actually sort of really refine the way that I'm looking at the clips, it affords me the opportunity, if I don't scroll past it, it affords me the opportunity to get much more sort of in detail. So if I wanted to put the playhead here, for example, and I wanted to use the Ripple Edit tool, which comes up automatically, whether you kind of want to use it or not. The Ripple Edit tool actually just moves the out of the clip. And then you can also move your playhead here, and you can use the cut tool or the razor tool, which is right here, and you can cut the clip. And that's literally taking 2 clips and making them into one. Taking 1 clip, making it into 2, thus cutting. Whee! So those are all wonderful things. I think that things that you should maybe be careful of when you're using the cut tool, let's try to make a cut here, which is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. And then after this cut, I think I'm going to grab this clip by selecting it. By the way, we have the move tool. The move or the selection tool is the default tool in Premiere. So if you're not sure what tool you should be using, the selection tool is the answer. Pretty much always this top tool. And some of these other tools will pop up as you get into a position where you could actually use them. So in other words, they're context sensitive. So let's go ahead and grab this clip that we just cut out of here. I'm going to go ahead and copy it rather, just by hitting Apple C. And I'm going to paste it. Well, what just happened there? So I know that we all love cutting and pasting, and I'm not being 100% sarcastic. Like, it's how things get done. It's a true statement. So what happened here? It basically pasted on the playhead, where when I think what I had actually wanted it to do was something more like that. So definitely something to note that if you're using the playhead becomes the sort of locus for anything that you might add or anything that you might introduce or paste into the scene and into the timeline. It's all going to happen on the playhead. So what's the moral of that story? Well, it's really simple. If you want something to not paste in the middle of your finely crafted, work, just move the playhead past, and then it will paste it afterwards. So pretty much like I'm definitely a paste at the end kind of person. But some people really like to have that sort of intrusion into the sort of middle of the scene. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the actual timeline window itself. So I'm going to roll out on the timeline a little bit, and what we're going to do is we're going to bring this a lot higher. And so just by wiggling some more space for ourselves, you can see that one of the cool things, or one of the useful things that Premiere does is it does what's called a keyframe preview. So you do get some sense of what clips are. If you want to have that knowledge, you can. You just need the space to show the little thumbnail images. Let's also maybe take a second to just think about what the timeline does. So right now, if I look at this video here, wow, okay, I'm in lightning speed right now. Let me just move back a little bit. That's better. So what just happened? Well, it looks like some sprinkles are getting bottled. It also looks like there's a gap between our videos, right? No joke. Yeah, there's definitely a gap. And that gap, how is that gap manifesting on the screen? That gap is manifesting as black, solid black. And so that's something to know about Premiere. That's basically the default. If you don't have anything there, it's going to show a black screen. I mean, it's good to know that it shows that instead of like a rainbow test screen or something. Yeah, definitely, it's not sort of to say that you shouldn't ever have pauses in your video. That's totally a thing you can do, but it's something to just kind of think about. Let's go ahead and make it so these videos touch. Well, all I have to do to make them sort of contiguous is to just hover the mouse over, and it sort of magnetizes to the end of the other clip. So you can kind of, you can't feel like the magnet energy come through your laptop or anything. No, doesn't work that way. But yeah, it does definitely start to kind of like pull that clip towards it, and then it becomes sort of locked in. And so now you can see we're back to our sort of seamlessly functioning thing. Let's do a couple of other things to kind of like mess this up while we're here, and then we can kind of move on Thursday. So a couple of other things that we can think about sort of with our project is I would think about, let's think about using this second track. So you may notice that when you automatically made your project, there was, let's see, a V2 and a V3. How many tracks can you have in Premiere Pro at once? It's kind of a rhetorical question. Under 99, I think, is the correct answer. I would liken it to the question of how many layers can you have in Photoshop. For me, it's like, how many are you willing to make and keep track of? Video tracks, very much a similar sort of thing. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's go ahead and pop this video up to the next track. And you can see that our video is going, and then it's gone. And this might not be the best example because it's very close to what's happening in the original. Let me actually take a cut out piece from the beginning so that it looks really different from the other video. So I'm just going to use the razor tool and cut a chunk of this video out. And then I'm going to take this, I'm not even copying and pasting. I'm just going to take this and copy it over. Hello. Okay, I'm just going to make that a tiny bit more efficient by zooming out on the timeline a little bit more. And I can drag it just much more efficiently that way. So now I can zoom back in, and I'm sort of like back where I'm supposed to be. So we wanted to definitely get the sense that this was a different video. So there we go. So you can see that what is happening here is basically you can think of tracks in Premiere as Photoshop layers that have the added dimension of time. And so that is pretty much how they work. So with this, right now this is a kind of 100% opacity, and it's previewing, quickly. That's a pretty straightforward way to process a change from video to video. We haven't even really gotten into transitions yet, of course. But let me just go like maybe one step further into the interesting. And I did give myself some more real estate on these tracks. And one of the things that opens up is this idea of it makes it possible for you to see the thumbnails. It also opens up this line right here will become visible if you have the track window visible enough. And with that line, you could take the pen tool and you could drop the opacity keyframes, for example, and you can start to have the layers talk to one another, basically. So you can see here we're sort of at full opacity, and then as this drops, it's showing the clip underneath it sort of through to the next transition. And we're going to sort of get into like more of what we want to do on Thursday. But I think this is actually kind of like a lot that I've just thrown at you. So I'm going to wrap things up, and I'm going to take a couple minutes to wrap them up. So there's a couple of other things that I want you to be aware of in your Premiere project. And thanks for your patience with these sort of obligatory, boring, this is how Premiere works, but that's why we're here. So if everyone, when you get a sequence together, and how do we get a sequence together? Well, we took a video right here from the assets browser, and we moved it into the timeline for the first time. So then when you get that sequence, you can actually click on the sequence itself. Right here, our sequence right now is called Sprinkles. And you can go to Sequence Settings. This is a really, really good place to make sure that your project is not messed up. So if your project says width 1920, height 1080, congratulations. Your video's in HD, and you can advance to the next step. If you're having trouble with these sequence settings, if they don't look like the ones that I have on the screen right now, that would be a great thing to either send a screenshot to me or the TA and just ask us, like, I did this thing, it didn't turn out the way I wanted. What did I do? What's wrong? We'll be happy to help. But yeah, basically, these are the sequence settings that you should have. And basically, my recommendation is that you check those sequence settings within the first hour or so of working on your project, because if they're wrong, they're incredibly difficult to fix on the other end. If there's any fixing to be done, it's good to sort of like get it done early so that you don't have to, and this pains me to say this, but so you don't have to do your whole project over again. Yeah, so it's hard, but by doing that, you will just make sure that everything's cool. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and save my project right now, and I do wanna also just kind of alert you to where my project wound up. So I did stick it in a folder, and you'll notice that here is the Premiere project, and here is the auto-saved versions of my project. So Premiere sort of, will auto-save to a degree. I want you all to know that this is not your entire project. So what we've done is we've taken all of these assets and we've added them into the project. And Premiere has sort of, maybe awesomely, maybe not awesomely, allowed us to do that without honking back at us. Hey, your projects are in your project is in another folder. Is that a problem? So I'm going to say, yeah, it's a problem, and I'm going to fix it right now. So what I can do to fix it, it's a problem that I created, just to be clear. But yeah, I just want to kind of make sure that everybody gets this. So when I added in the clips, they were straight, I think, from downloads. So basically what I need to do is just grab these clips and have them go into this folder. I can talk to you a little bit about how to refresh any assets, but just for future reference, and this is my official Premiere advice to you, have a folder. There it is. It's called My Video. Have a folder. Have all of your stuff in that folder. Don't take stuff out, and Premiere will thank you. If you start taking stuff out of the folder and moving it around, Premiere will give you this nice red screen that says, hey, I can't find your asset, and then you will be asked to look on your hard drive and find it, and sometimes you get lucky and you can find it, and sometimes you can't. So definitely, like, the biggest thing that you can do to ensure success for the project is to make sure that you maintain some kind of folder strategy. And the easiest folder strategy is just make a folder, put stuff in it. Don't mess with it after that. So does anyone have any questions before we head out? Okay, so on Thursday, we're going to start talking a little bit more about editing in Premiere, and we may also start getting into some sound stuff, and it'll be exciting. Yay. All right, I'll see you all on Thursday.